Simon Rainier, Links Armazzare out of Kamloops, British Columbia. One of my primary goals with starting this channel was to help people who either don't have access to a club, don't have access specifically to Fiore, or just want some extra training guides to go along with their practice. I had a couple of people ask me about doing this, and I noticed there's not a whole lot of beginner level Fiore stuff out there, so put up or shut up, let's get started, right? Today I'm going to talk about something a little bit different though. Basically what to do if you have options for clubs, if you have choices. How do you make a decision? Easiest thing to do is obviously if you have two clubs in the area, which does happen. Kamloops has a population of somewhere around the range of 90,000, and we have two groups. We have mine, Links Armazzare, and we have Sword Scholars Martial Arts, which is a study group connected to Academy Duello out of Vancouver. So if you're in that kind of situation, we're also unique in that, fairly unique I think, in that a lot of our material we study is the same. We both work a lot with Fiore, and other things are thrown in on either side, but for the most part we do similar things. So the easiest thing to do in that situation is go to both. Figure out which one you like better, go to that one. Despite the fact that there being two, we both started around the same time. I was first. But the focus is very different. In Sword Scholars, as right in the name, they're very scholarly focused, whereas my school is a little bit more martially focused. So I put more emphasis on the fighting aspect of it, and they put more emphasis on sort of learning directly from the treatise and doing it very scholarly, as opposed to someone's coming at you with a sword, this is how you deal with it. So and yeah, so I mean it depends on sort of what your goals are, what's going to be a better fit for you, or just who you're going to get along with better in terms of the students and the instructors. So a little more on that later, I think. So go to both schools, or two schools, or three schools, or take a class with each. Most places offer first class free. Most places that I've seen anyway. And honestly, if they didn't, I would probably be less inclined to go check it out, because a free class from an instructor's perspective costs you virtually nothing to offer, and it's a really great way of getting people to try it out without any kind of financial commitment, and hopefully they come back and start actually taking classes, which is always ideal. So the next thing I want to say is, if you have multiple schools and they teach different things, you can pick, for example, again, I teach Fiore. Maybe there's a school in town that teaches 17th century Italian rapier. Maybe there's a school that teaches Highland broadsword. If one of those things called you, if one of those things really get you excited, then yeah, go to that one, assuming it's, again, a good school. Don't be afraid to walk away if you get a bad vibe. Very, very important that when you go, everyone is having a good time, everyone's having fun, and that people seem like the kind of people that you would get along with, I think is very, very important thing. I've done martial arts where I didn't really have a lot in common with other students, and as much as I enjoyed learning it, and as much as I enjoyed the instructors, it was very, very hard for me to get excited about going. And I really think that with something as cool as this, you should feel excited about going every class. At the very least interested and passionate about it. So that's really the first primary thing you need to look out for, is when you go out, are you having a good time? Secondarily, it's, are they teaching the thing that you want? Now, I do have to say, HEMA is huge. There are so many different things, so many different styles, so many different weapon systems or masters that you study from. Old treatises that they range from the early 1300s to the 1900s. That's a huge range of time, a huge area of interest. Chances are, if you do have one thing you're super interested in, you're not going to find a school to teach that in your area. You might get lucky, fantastic. But probably not. Now, what I will say to that is go and try it out anyway. HEMA is, as much as it's huge, it's also fairly interconnected. Even if they're not studying what you want to learn right away, maybe they teach workshops, or maybe down the line they switch over. When I started, I was really interested in longsword. The school I started with, which did offer longsword later on in the curriculum, much later, I said, oh, you're going to have to be doing this for a few years before you do longsword. We started with rapier. And I stuck with it, and I'm really glad I did. I really started to enjoy the rapier, but really it was always to me about getting a hold of that longsword and getting to, yeah. But I still do have a lot of interest in rapier. So, I mean, it's worth trying out and seeing. I mean, and fundamentally speaking, a sword is a sword. So there's going to be a lot of crossovers, specifically with, the sword arts. So don't let that discourage you. There was a post I saw a little while ago of someone in the area looking for George Silver specifically, and I tried reaching out to this person, never heard back, unfortunately. But I teach Fiore, but I'm also interested in George Silver, so come out and chat, and I'm happy to do extra things on our open sparring time or whatever. So check it out. Like, people interested in swords tend to be interested in swords. So if you're interested in one thing, chances are you'll be able to find someone, if not one of the instructors, one of the other students will probably be interested in the same things you are. So come on out to schools. So that's what you're looking for. Are you having a good time? Do they teach what you want to learn? And that's sort of the core of it. A couple of red flags to look for. Kind of touched on that a little bit before. Are people not having a good time? Is it like, martial arts is supposed to be fun, I think. And if people aren't having fun, if people aren't enjoying it, then they don't tend to hang around very long. So the other thing, for me personally, attitude of the students and instructors is very, very important. A really red flag for me is if people are being overly macho about it. That, for a lot of people, is really off-putting. I know it is for me. If you're highly, highly competitive, that might actually be a good environment for you. But it's not for everyone. One of the other red flags is if there are multiple schools in the area, what's the level of sort of communication and interaction between them? There are some places that with multiple HEMA schools, and they don't talk to each other, and they don't interact, and I think that's unfortunate. We're a small enough community. I think we need to be a community. With the other school here in Kamloops, I've gone to his classes, he's gone to my classes, our students interact all the time. I host a sparring time, and him and his students are always invited out to that. And I think it's important to build that community within as big an area as you can, because some of the worst fighters out there are the ones who only fight in their school, and for purely practical reasons, that's enough for me. We're doing a recreated martial art from old books that are in some cases very vague. Things tend to work against each other, so I may have an interpretation of a technique that works really well against other people who are doing it the same way, but falls to pieces if someone hasn't come from my background or hasn't been trained with me. So it's important to me that we pressure test against each other as well, not necessarily in a competitive, I'm going to beat you kind of environment, but in a friendly get-together, let's see what works. We need to, as a community as a whole, we only get stronger by working together. Competition breeds strength. and interaction breeds strength, and exchange of ideas is never, ever a bad thing in my experience. But get out there and train. Like, if you have a school nearby, check them out, even if it seems like they're not teaching what you want to learn right away. And by the same token, if you get the bad feeling from them, walk away. It's not worth spending the time and money in a place that's toxic. You're not going to train well. You're not going to be happy. And hey, there are resources out there for learning. Get together with friends. Start your own group. A lot of groups out there started with just 2 people, a couple of sticks, and a book. And at the very base level, that's all you need. Yeah, and if there's any other questions about what to look for or what to stay away from, there's a comment section down below. I'll post links to social media and all that kind of fun stuff. And once again, that was a cattail going by. Thank you for your time. Hey, one more thing. Super important. Somehow totally forgot to mention it. Make sure you're allowed to ask questions in whatever class you take. I haven't personally come across this too much, but I've heard horror stories of people going to class and asking questions and basically being told that questions are not allowed, whether it's something as simple as why do we do something this way, or something bigger. You should always be able to have answers to that kind of question. When it comes to like, why do we do something this way? The instructor should either be able to answer you, which is sort of the ideal situation, or just sort of slightly below that, be able to say, I don't know right now. This is the way I learned it. Let me look into that and get back to you. That's acceptable. What's not acceptable is not being allowed to ask questions or being told that this is just the way we do it. I don't think that really flies. And again, I haven't come across that too much myself, but I've heard stories, so watch out for that one. Thank you.